Is Roger Ver REKT or just clever? Welcome back, everyone. We are going to dive into this very interesting story about Roger Ver and Genesis Trading and the millions of dollars that he may or may not owe based on some of his trades or some of his options that expired. Look, some people say he's wrecked. Maybe he's just, like I said at the beginning, maybe he's just clever. Anyways, let's dive into this story and see what we come up with. So here we go. Roger Ver says he won't pay Genesis $20 million for bad trades. Bitcoin Cash proponent Roger Ver is once again feuding with an embattled crypto company over bad trades worth millions of dollars. This time, it's bankrupt lender Genesis. Genesis subsidiary GGC International filed a court summons in New York earlier this week, demanding Ver pay no less than $20 million to cover a set of crypto options. Ver, once referred to as Bitcoin Jesus for his BTC evangelism before staunchly supporting the Bitcoin Cash hard fork in 2017, says he won't pay up. Genesis was required by our agreement to remain solvent, as Genesis can't ask its clients to play a heads, clients lose, tails, Genesis wins game, Ver wrote. He further claimed that he'd asked Genesis in June for assurances of its solvency, but didn't receive what he wanted to know. Don't get me wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's completely irrelevant to his options expiring. But anyways, it doesn't even make a difference. While it's unclear whether courts will compel Ver to cover the expired options, this isn't the first time he's been challenged on trading debt. Last July, he was entangled with a similar platform, Coinflex, which we actually just talked about in recent episodes, after CEO Mark Lamb accused him of owing the company $47 million in USDC after he failed to meet a margin call. Coinflex later filed legal action in Hong Kong against Ver, saying its estimated losses from Ver's refusal to pay the debt, which had nearly doubled to $84 million. Ver denied owing Coinflex and instead alleged the now bankrupt exchange actually left him out of pocket. Okay. All right, so look, number one, before we even talk about his obviously terrible trading, there's a book that everybody needs to check out. It's called The Block Size War by Jonathan Bayer. I hope I pronounced his last name correctly. I apologize if I didn't. That is a great book, and it will give everybody an awesome insight into what happened and why, essentially the role that Roger Ver played. Because essentially, for the people that weren't there, not that I'm going to dive into the massively long history and the arguments and all of this, because there's Roger Ver, there's Craig Wright that joins, there's also Jihan Wu, and it's a whole big story. That's why The Block Size War, great book. But my point is this. Roger had a very specific narrative for Bitcoin that he touted, okay? And this was the quote-unquote cheap, relatively free transactions. And it became understood that over time, as more and more people join the Bitcoin network and more people desire to make transactions, you can't necessarily keep those transactions cheap without essentially breaking what Bitcoin is. And Roger Ver obviously was willing to die on this hill, and he was willing to die on this hill metaphorically, of course. I know the YouTube algorithms don't like us saying those words, metaphorically dying on this hill. He's not really dead. He's just a terrible trader now and a very bitter shitcoiner. But he was willing to die on this hill and go and fork Bitcoin into Bcash, which for a very, very small period of time, the hash rate was picking up for Bcash, and it looked like, oh my gosh, it was going to flip the hash rate of Bitcoin, but of course it didn't. And you can take a look at what Bcash is now, just a smoldering pile of crap. Okay, so that's just my piece about Roger. But look, in terms of this trading, I actually do think he's very clever. I don't think he's wrecked at all. I have no idea how much Bitcoin he has. I don't really care, obviously, how much Bitcoin he has. I don't think any of us should really give a shit how much Bitcoin Roger Ver has. You should really only be interested in your own stack. But I think it's interesting because I don't think he's wrecked, and I think that he's just waiting them out. I think that he's not stupid and that he understood very well that I'm not going to have to pay these people their options, and essentially they're going to have to claim bankruptcy, and it's going to be done. I actually do think that he might be that clever.